up, Sneeples? We finally are coming to the end where we're going to be talking about everything else that's not light or shadow in the Dusk Till Dawn set. We're going to talk about what cards are going to help some of the old heroes become even better or relevant, and what cards are just whatever. So let's get right into it. Let's talk about first starting off with Anthem of Spring. Originally, I was a little bit more down on this card than a lot of people. I just didn't see it as doing too much, and it's like, yeah, it's a better Weaver, but like, Briars weren't really playing Weaver because there was already better cards. However, after playing against Lexi and blocking again in double embodiment, I was instantly transformed and thinking, okay, I do like this card. Maybe I will play it over Sotomaro or a Sift or something of that sort. So I do think this is a great card for Briar. It helps that consist, or adding more Earth cards to allow for Channel Mount Heroic to be even kept the second turn easier. And it's not really too hard to replace cards to get it in. So I think this is an easy auto include for Briar decks. Alright. Northern Winds. If you're playing UPF, this is a fun card. You do have to play Oldham in UPF, which could get you some hate, and you do have to play a little politics in that game. So, maybe freezing everyone's stuff could, get you targeted. So I'm a little iffy on this card, even in the UPF format. We are supposed to get a new PvE format, so we will see what that entails. Maybe then Northern Winds become something really great. But until then, it's only legal in UPF, so play it, with some careful consideration, basically. Okay, next up, Call Down the Lightning. I don't see this card getting played. I did try to build a Lightning Lexi deck to try to see what this card will do, but ultimately it just gets a little too cute. And even then, I don't even know if this card, I don't even know if this card would go in a Lightning Lexi deck. I do think the card is good, but I just don't think it makes that build any better to really come out and take over the Fuseless Lexi. I think Fuseless Lexi, even with the Bullseye Bracers being banned, is still going to be, quite fine. It's still going to be the aggro deck to deal with. Alright, Rugged Roller. I like this card a lot. And I like it a lot because I actually think it actually really helps Kaio become competitive in Blitz. Because the fact that is, as long as you rolled a 6 at any point on this turn, this will be a 1 for 6, is really damn good. Now, there's tons of cards out there, like High Roller. There's just other cards too. Something the odds, beat the odds, or something like that. There's tons of non-attack action cards that have you roll to determine what's going to happen. As long as you roll a 6, even at that point, your regular roller is going to come in for 6. And then of course, Kaio's ability itself has you roll to see if the attack's going to be doubled or halved. So there's so many opportunities to roll. But my point why this makes Kaio more competitive is because if you fail to roll on the attack, so the attack is halved, at least if it has go again, or if you have 2 action points, which there's plenty of cards that have go again, and there's you have your Scam Skin letters and making your action points, then at least you can follow it up with a 6 power. And that is why I think this card is super needed for Kaio to be on the map. So I'm very happy about this card. Next up is Scowling Fleshbag. Big card for Brutes. Rhinar players, rejoice. You've finally gotten a headpiece. You will still be wearing that damn tunic, but you finally got a headpiece. This is a great headpiece. This is what Rhinar needed for the aggro decks to have a chance against. In order to, potentially really disrupt that aggro turn that they're trying to play out. Their 3 of a kind turn, their Channel Mount Heroic turn, so that you can get your Blood Rush Bellow turn and come in with full force. You are racing those decks, and this helps with that race. So I like this card a lot for Rhinar, and I like it for Levia too. This card is just too good to ignore, and I think if you're Brute, you probably are just going to be playing this card. Kaio, Rhinar, and Levia. Okay, next up, Numbskool. I do like Numbskool. I'm all about Numbskool. This is a card that you can play in Kaio if you're just afraid. I don't know. You probably don't. You know, I don't know. You're playing Kyle for a reason. But as far as Rhinar, you can definitely play this in Rhinar. Yeah, I won't get the Blood Rush Bellow Pump, but it also won't ever get minused. And what I mean by that is, like, there's Herald of Triumph, there's like Celestial Reprimand. This will always be a popper when it comes to the Heralds, and that's really, really nice. And if you're going against Icelander, this will never cost more than 2. And if you're going against Assassin, this will never block less than 3. So I think maybe it does depend on what hero you're going against. Maybe this is more of a sideboard card. But I do actually like numbskool, and it's on point 2 for 6 that blocks for 3. So it is a good rate. Alright, Digupdinner. I think this is the only brute card I'm just not that big on. In fact, I don't think it's good. I think digging up dinner here is just, it sticks with the theme of being random, but I don't want to be random when it comes to just gaining life and like putting cards back in. I just don't see that as something that I'm all about, and I don't know why I want to have this card. Now, I have been told that perhaps a club control build would want to run this card, and that maybe I could see. You know, it's a bit of potential life gain to have with it that blocks for 3. But here again, this is a non-attack that isn't a 6 power, right? So Ryder wants these 6 power attacks, or to be able to, you know, trigger the Intimidate and trigger some of the other abilities. And so this doesn't help with that, so I'm hesitant with this card. I really am. I'm not a big fan of it. Okay. Moving on to Guardian. This is our only Guardian card of the set, but this is the only one we need because it's a great one. This is an auto-include in Bravo decks. Bravo is our only Guardian right now in CC, and it's the only one that can play this card because it is a specialization. I think you will play it in both CC and Blitz. This card is just good, plain and simple. Even if you're going Sift Bravo, there's no way you're not playing this card. Any sort of Bravo deck is going to be playing this card. So now I think you're going to be having 3 of Starstruck, 3 Spinal Crushes, 3 Cranial Crushes, 3 Crippling Crush, and probably 3 Chokeslams or something. And I think that's going to be your basic Bravo builds that will never change. Alright, now let's get into Warrior. Decimator Great Axe. I do like this weapon quite a bit. I'm very happy about this weapon. I wasn't too thrilled about the Merciless Battle Axe, but this Decimated Great Axe is actually good. This axe ability makes it very hard to fully defend, which means with Dory's ability is you can attack multiple times with this axe. That will require a different build, a more blue heavy build, because this does cost 3 to come in for 4. However, you do get access to axe synergy cards like Cleave. Cleave is so big. It's a 1 for 4 that also threatens the health, or that can basically kill 2 dragons or 2 angels at once. So Decimator Great Axe opens up that ability. You also get Spill Blood and then Fell Swing. There's a ton of stuff that works for axes out there. So I think there's enough to really make a good axe deck. I do have a mini deck tech video coming about this deck, and I do think there's a potential for it. I don't think I've solved it, but I am laying out the foundation. Maybe that's something that happened, but very thrilled with this Decimator Great Axe. Next up is Bastion of Unity. Beautiful art, but I think that's as far as it gets. I did actually build a build that did use Bastion of Unity and was just being like Bastion of Unity and Centauri Saber. And what I found is that it just wasn't enough. It just didn't threaten enough damage for that build to be any bit worth it. So where Bastion of Unity is a cool card, cool looking card, I don't think this is a card that right now that Warrior wants to play with. Alright, Iron Song versus, just like with the Scowling Fleshbag, this is so big for Warriors. I think you're going to be wanting to play this in every build possible. Now, this does say sword, so as mentioned before with the axe, do not play this with the axe. Play the Brave Force Bracers, that's better. But Bolton decks, Rejoice. This card's great. You want to play this in Bolton for sure. You can even play it over the Brave Force Bracers in combo. That would be fine too, honestly. Although you probably play the Gallantry Gold. But Iron Song versus in the Raiden and in the Beaming Blade build, the Vestige of Soul build, great and honestly mandatory. As far as Dorinthia, this is great there too, right? Being able to, if you can only attack once with the sword, but you'll have an extra resource at the end, this is great. Instead of having that extra resource, you have something to spend it on and to threaten an on hit, even if your turn's a little bit mediocre, because that courage token does so much. As I mentioned before in previous videos, courage token is my favorite token that came out of this set, even more than the eloquence token. So very high on this card. And then next up is Chorus of Iron Song. This is purely if Prism becomes dominant in the meta. Otherwise, I wouldn't run this card. Yeah, it does create a courage token if you double block with it, and that part's okay. But it's a 1 for +1 that damage can't be prevented on. I just don't see it being there, honestly. So I would just only run it if Prism is going to be big in the meta. Then I would consider this. Otherwise, I just wouldn't consider this. Alright. And then finally, we have Morlock Hill. So this is for Kasai. I should also mention, as far as Kasai goes, Iron Song Versus is great with Kasai as well. If you have the extra resources, this is something great to put into. I am all about it. Okay, now Morlock Hill, this is a Kasai card. I think you could technically play Minerva Themis in Dorinthia. Yeah, in fact, I know you can. You can play in Dorinthia and Bolton in Blitz, but when we're talking about Warriors of Blitz, we're talking about Kasai. So now that there's this new rule for this, and it's a temporary rule, we'll see if it sticks around, but that allows you to have basically like a sideboard. You know, you can run Oasis Respites in your sideboard for Kano. But before that rule came out, I think this is what this card was doing. It was trying to provide a card to have an answer for Kano so that Kasai wouldn't have such a terrible matchup. Now that the temporary ruling is that you can have a sideboard, I don't think this card is going to see play. It doesn't block, so I don't think it's going to see play, but we'll see what happens. Maybe it would in the sideboard, I don't know yet, but I think Oasis might be the play, just because you don't need a Minerva to make it work. Okay, Rune Blade cards, Scepter of Pain. I like this card a lot. I like that it's a weapon that can attack, but without using your rune chance or without breaking your rune chance. That's what I like about it. Now, am I going to be playing this in a Visceride deck? Probably not, unless it's built to just be an OTK Visceride deck, which I do have a mini deck tech coming about that. But I wouldn't play this in a normal Visceride deck. It's cool, but not that cool. In a Vincent deck, though, I'm playing this. In fact, I'm playing this in more likely than the Flail in most Vincent decks. Only the Gogan will I play the Flail. So, Scepter of Pain, I like a lot, and I'm glad that this has been introduced to Rune Blades. Okay, next up is Dietic Carapace. This card is phenomenal. This card was a huge upgrade for Viscerai for sure, but can also be a great card for Vincent as well. As far as Chain and Briar goes, you can play this in Chain if you really wanted to. You wouldn't play it for the blocking Chain because you do have access to the Carrion Husk, but if you wanted to have the AB, you could play that. However, now that you have those cloaks or the darkness stuff, like Dance Darkness, Cloak of Dark, you know, all that stuff, I think those are better options. So I don't know about playing this in Chain for Blitz. But if we're talking about, you know, other heroes like Briar, this I could see. Briar and Viscerai for CC are, you know, very, very weak to Iyslander. They're especially Bullander. They oftentimes are very unfavored, and this helps that matchup quite a bit. But this can also just help against either the mirror, like going against like any Rosetta Thorn deck, or just going against Kano itself. AB2 is super, super nice. Now, is this going to replace Aether Ironweave? I don't necessarily think so. Maybe, maybe not, but I think Briar would still rather play Aether Ironweave over Dietic Carapace because the 2 resources could be huge. However, Viserai, I think, could play this over that card and feel perfectly fine with it. I think the only thing is that would this card ever just full on replace Tunic? And I kind of don't think so, but I could also see it doing that. I don't know. Finally, with Vincent, here again, you have the Carrion Husk for ultimate blocks if you so need it. But the Dietic Carapace is a great block as well that won't give you Blood Depth if it's destroyed and fits the AB plan. So you can have this plus your Grimoire of the Haunt, and you have AB3, easy done, no more is needed. So I do think this card goes in almost every hero that is a Runeblade, with the exception of Chain and maybe Briar. Alright, now let's talk about a bad one. Where Dietic Carapace was super, super good, Bequest of Bastion is not so. This can only be played with Viserai, and this was basically LSS way of saying, and LSS did say it, that we're not getting Blood Sheaf Skeleton back. And it's basically permabanned. That has been announced. But Bequest of Bastion is kind of its pseudo replacement. However, I don't think we're there yet. There's not a big cost Runeblade attack other than Knife Blade that is worth using this card for. And even with that, Knife Blade kind of already has a reduction, so it's not even necessarily great for Knife Blade. It can make it where you only need a few rune chants, like 4 rune chants to play, or 5 to play Knife Blade, but that's still a lot of rune chants. So it's just not there yet. Maybe we'll get like some sort of pulverized type Runeblade attack in the future, and then boom, this won't be so bad. But as of now, it's just not here. Okay, Runic Reckoning. Weirdly enough, especially since I'm not a Runeblade player, is one of the best cards printed in DTD, in my opinion. And that's because this card does everything you want it to do for Viserai, and I even like it for Vincent. I even like it for possibly for, well, no, I don't like it for Chain, because Chain doesn't really care about rune chants all that much. And then Briar, she doesn't have a lot of Runeblade attacks. Most of her attacks are generic. So really this is Viserai Vincent card. But let's talk about it real quick. So it costs 1, except it could cost 0 if you have 1 less rune chant, and then gives your next Runeblade attack attack action +3, has go again. So with Viserai, it's your non-attack that can help build the rune chants up by, if every other non-attack or attack that comes after it. It could cost 0, which oftentimes you will have a rune chant card, so it will cost, rune chant token, so it will cost 0. And what I found out by playing with this card is that it is the best Spellbound Creepers target. It will be, you can respond to your rune chant breaking, Spellbound Creeper it in, and get an action point. So you can come in with like an Arknight, what is his name? Arknight Ascendant or something? The guy who, comes in for 6 and, costs 3 less, or costs less for each rune chant you have. Anyways, you come in with this big guy. He doesn't have go again. You Spellbound Creepers in response to the rune chant pop in. Boom. For 0, you got go again. You just paid 1 for the Spellbound Creeper. Proceed with your turn, my good sir or ma'am. Just go and get him. This card is great for that. And then as far as for Vincent's ability, this is just a free pump. This is just a free pump to your RuneGate card that's coming out. So I like it for that. And then finally, it blocks 3. It's just a good block as well. So there's like no downside to this card for Viserai and Vincent. I think this is a huge card for them. Okay. All right. Now let's get into the light. For Shapeshifter, we have Shianas Specialization. Very cool card. If you're playing Shiana, you're going to play this card. And that's really all there really is to it. I don't think we have to talk more about it. Even if you're going, I think like the only time you don't want to play this is if you're going against Kano. but then it has a decent pitch value. It is yellow, so it's not the worst. Fun fact though, I found out if this turns into a snatch, you cannot pummel the snatch because it will assume the cost of a snatch. So good to know. All right, let's talk about some Illusionist cards. Reality Refractor, kind of the old Prism type weapon, except doesn't give go again. So you can only attack with one aura. It will come in for 5, but it's only once. And it is a bit cheaper than the Iris, but the Iris does allow you to have go again. So it's probably going to win out over Reality Refractor. All right, next up, Diadem of Dream State. This card is very interesting. I originally thought this was a Prism card, but after playing with the Halo, I feel like you probably just go Halo. Diadem of Dream State, I think, is for a hero that isn't out yet. I think, we're getting quite a bit of cards for an Illusionist play style that is almost like mono blue. And I could see this card being great for that. I also think because we've seen a lot of what seems like this character potentially in a lot of these blue Illusionist cards or something of the like. So I would be interested to see if this becomes a main character at some point. But as far as playability of a card, I think this is going to be one of those legendaries that aren't going to be worth a lot by the end. Flicker Trick. Flicker Trick is pretty interesting. I thought about this card. If you're going a defensive Prism, maybe, but I find that defensive Prism doesn't work as well as aggressive Prism. But I have thought about this card for Dromai. This is a red, and it's a defense reaction, so she does like playing defense reactions. You do have to block a non-6, but that's probably okay. I think if Katsu becomes a problem, then this would be a great card because this just blocks a Surging Strike straight up. But yeah, it's a good defense reaction, but does it replace Sink Below or Opt? Not yet. But if you do want to do more defense reactions, it does have that ability. You can play another set. Lost in Thought. I do like this card. I do like this card for Dromai, maybe as a sideboard card to get rid of some poppers. But it is just a great card just to take out a good attack and to basically have them have a hand of 3 cards, which is really nice. It probably does encourage blocking, so keep that in mind because they just know they won't have such a good turn next turn. So there's that, but other than that, this card's pretty damn good. I don't know if I played in Prism just because I find that Prism's pretty resource starved, so I don't know if I'll have the one extra resource a lot of the times, but it wouldn't surprise me if a competitive Prism comes out and is playing this card. I think this is a great card. It might just be a sideboard card though, I'm gonna be honest. Alright, Crown Providence, super happy that they printed this. If most heroes play this card, it was a ridiculous price. I just wanted to say I'm super happy they reprinted. The Frontline equipment, I hate this. I don't like this. The only thing I could think of is Benji. That's the only thing I could think of. Benji will not attack you turn 0. Okay, fine. But now, after turn 0 and turn 1, now you have no equipment, or you lose a piece of equipment that could block Benji. So I honestly think if you're, thinking about Frontline, anything, just do Iron Rod. Just do Iron Rod. Okay, Censor. Love this card. I think this card is super, super good. I think Uzuri's going to play it the best, and I could see other decks. I currently am I'm playing it in Dash. I'm playing it in a Tree Frog Dash deck because this card is potentially so damning to your opponent. Basically, whatever your opponent is, there's a card that they use to make their turn go nuts. So if I'm going against Briar, I can name Channel Mount Heroic with this. I'm going against Lexi, I can name 3 of a kind. If I'm going against Bravo, Crippling, every hero has a card that is meant for them and it's good for them. And now I can just say you cannot play that card. Sure, they might not have that card in hand, but if they and that would be fine, right? It would just mean that means you're not going to take a big turn from them. However, if they do have it in hand, it is crippling. You know, now they can't play the card and they just have it awkwardly in hand, or they have to pitch it, or whatever the case. So I am very big on Sensor, especially in Uzuri. But maybe like, you know, like I said, I'm playing in a Tree Frog Dash. I could see like a Dorinthia that like swings the blade, gives go again, play Sensor sort of deal. I know there was some sort of like Command Conquer type Dorinthia that did that. Okay. Next up, Mischief Meeps. I know people have been talking about this card in Briar. I'm not talking about it in Briar. I don't think it's good enough to be in Briar. It only blocks for 2. It costs 1. It's a 2. Go again. It's easily blockable. I'm just not about it. I'm just not about it at all. Play Snatch. That's a better card, right? And don't try to play both. Just don't. Now, Benji, however, loves this card. This card is so good in Benji. As long as you can make this unblockable, so just don't give it any pumps, this is a draw card. Or you can take an item. If you're facing Dash, you can take their item away. But if you're, you know, facing everyone else that doesn't have items, this is just a draw card. So damn good in Benji. I think this can really help Benji become competitive. So I'm very excited for Benji with this card. All right, coming down to the end here, we got Hold the Line. This is clearly a response to have some decks have access to defend against Lexi a little bit easier. I'm only playing this in like a Tree Frog Dash type deck. You could play it in some ninja builds, because if you're running Kodachis, this works good with Kodachis. But you know, I played it in Tree Frog Dash. I played it in OTK Viscerai. This is a D-React that isn't very good unless a condition is met. So unless you're using the blue pitch quite often, I wouldn't play this deck or this card. Hack to Reality. This is one of those cards that's going to be dependent on Prism. I think for the most part, we're not really seeing any other oppressive auras out there. Of course there is, you know, there's Burn Them All, there's Channel Mount, Heroic, but those decks aren't S tier. We're not, you know, for sure going to see those decks. So I don't think Hack to Reality is going to meet the needs for any deck right now, but it's good generic to have, you know, if you need it. Warmongers Diplomacy. This is one of those other cards that can be spec'd for this new PvE format, and it could be really fun. It's pretty cool in UPF. I like this in UPF, so it's already being pretty good for a PvE format. And then finally, I'm playing this in a Tree Frog Dash deck as well, because it's meeting the condition of being a 0 cost, a blue pitch, and blocking for 3. Whatever else is on that card is gravy. So being able to stop a Viscerai from doing something as far as non-attack into an attack or something of the sort, that can be pretty good. But if I just have to block this card, or if I just have to pitch this card, A-okay. That's why I'm good with this card. I like this card. Finally, our last card of the set, Poison the Well. This card is another spec card. Alchemist, I think Alchemist is a class as well, but Cleric is a class in the lore book of Flesh and Blood. So at some point we will get a Cleric class coming out, and when that comes out, Poison the Well will be a card to use against that class. So I like it for that, but I also like this as a sneaky card versus Kano. You know, if they're going to gain some life with Toma Fiendel, you can make them lose life. Plus, this is the blue pitch, so that's why it'd be pretty good in Kano. But I don't see anyone seriously playing this, honestly. So I would only like spec on this card for when Cleric comes out. Okay, that is all of the new cards. A little bit longer in this video because we did have a little bit more cards and more heroes to talk about. Overall, I do think that Runner gets a small bump. You know, we'll see how much this plays a big part into, you know, facing against Lexi. I think Dorinthia gets a pretty good sized bump with this and Oldham leaving the format. And this is a huge help to Bolton. I think this helps Bolton get out of the F tier into B tier. And then I think Dietic Carapace and Runic Reckoning are boosting up this right quite a bit. As well as helping out Vinsect stay somewhat in, you know, playability range. I think those are the biggest ones. I think those are the biggest bumps we're going to see with the old heroes coming in. So I'm excited for that. And we have a whole new meta coming upon us. So We'll stick to it, make some more videos. Eventually, we'll make some competitive deck tech videos. But until then, keep on fabbing. Catch you on the next one.